Get my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid and whatever the hell this channel's about. Today, it's about a ghost train, a haunted island up in Maine, a vanishing car, alternative dimensions, all kinds of stuff. Got some really good stories sent in by viewers like you and potentially you if you send in one of these stories. You can send your stories in if you'd like at crazylake@mail.com. If you want us to use your name, let us know. If you want to remain anonymous, let me know, and I'll do that as well. Special shout out and thanks to our new channel administrator, Erie. Just like Siri, but creepy. It's not a real name, it's a handle she chose. She's going to be policing the comment section from now on, so I don't have to, so I can focus on doing what I need to get done. But you guys will still have the ability to come on here and fight with perfect strangers you've never met and will never meet over things you hardly understand. No, wait. Those are the vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges. Erie will be getting rid of those folks so that the bread and butter and the true heart and soul of this channel, the good ones out there, can come on here and have open-minded conversations about these kind of really weird things. So, I call them weird, no disrespect. Hey, you've seen enough stuff like this on the channel, have enough of my own experiences. But before we get into that, I want to show you something and talk to you for like a minute or two. You'll remember I was very inspired when I visited the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville, Kentucky this summer when my family and I took a trip out to the Grand Canyon and back. And I decided I was going to come back and try to help folks maybe who were, well, part of the working class, people who want to do a little bit more to get a little bit further ahead than they are. And one of the biggest things I've done is highly suggested that you go watch my buddy Travis Daigle at Fighting Past 40, old friend of mine from basic training, AIT, and airborne school, a man who lost over 100 pounds, used to be obese, is a former U.S. Army Green Beret, and a combat veteran of the war in Afghanistan. If that guy can't motivate you, I don't know who can. He's been motivating me to get back into, to use my time more wisely. I was going to say get back into doing something that I love to do, but that's inaccurate. He's inspired me to get into something I've wanted to do for years but haven't. Largely because I've been wasting a lot more time than I realized I was wasting. So anyway, with no further ado, as my beautiful bride Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, would say, I'm going to show you today's final product and explain to you why I'm doing this. Listen, I've been researching ways out there to kind of have side hustles, how to make money on the side, so I could come here and share them with you. Some of them are so good, I'm doing them myself. Check out my new recycled lumber project I just finished this morning. These aren't attached. I'm holding them together like this so you can see them. These are made out of recycled lumber. They're candy corns, as you can tell, for Halloween or fall. But they're also more than that because, listen, I'm creative. I want to get a leg up on the competition. These sell for a certain price on Etsy, and I'm selling at that same price because I'm not going to be, one of these bad word guys and come in here and undercut the market and piss everybody off and cause the market to crash. However, I honestly believe I'm going to sell 4 times as many as anybody else. Why? Because I'm doubling the value for half the price. How's that? Here's how that is. These sell for a certain price, okay? And you can get Christmas ones too that look like Christmas for the same price. And a lot of people that make these make them for fall and Christmas. Guess what I've done? Remember Transformers? I've done both. I've made them reversible. If I hold them correctly. Here's the Christmas candy corns. So you get them, you set them up in your house through the fall, and then after Thanksgiving, before you go Black Friday shopping, just flip them over, whether they're on your bookshelf or on your dining table or whatever. So you don't have to buy 2 sets. You get 1 set for the same price everybody else is selling their sets for, but you get to use it twice for the double amount of holidays. So that's why you get twice as much use for only half the price. Okay? Now, this is really neat. Recycled lumber. Let me show you a couple of quick clips of where I'm getting my lumber for free and how simple it is to do this. Check this out. All right, guys, here's how I'm starting with the lumber for my recycled lumber projects, like the chunky wood candy corns for both fall and Christmas. Now look, I get these pallets for free. This doesn't cost me a thing. You can find these on Craigslist. You can go into town, go behind the box stores. Now listen, ask first. Don't just start taking pallets. But I've never been told no. You can go to the industrial parks. Same thing. Ask first, otherwise it's theft. Again, I've never been told no. So I brought them home. Look at this. This is like new lumber. I originally decided I'd take the lumber apart with a crowbar and a hammer. It started splitting because it was very dry. So instead I got my skill saw here, not sponsored, $40 skill saw, and I cut the timbers out, and then I'll come up, cut right here. And I don't do it in flip-flops. I do this, I wear hard-toe boots when I do it. Always be safe. So then I use the little lumber slats for my projects as well as the timbers. And I'm going to give you an example. Everything will be used, and look, everything thus far as the wood and lumber go, is free. Okay, guys, again, pardon this mess. I'll give you a full shot of the woodshed once I get it organized and cleaned up. But once I get the lumber cut off from the pallets, I bring it in here. And I've created patterns for the size of the candy corns I want to make. I've got them marked off 3 1/4 this way, inches, 3 1/2 this way. So I'll come on for the big ones, and I'm all about minimizing the number of cuts I have to make. So I'll trace this pattern out this way, flip it over this way, and then that minimizes my cuts, gives me 2 big ones. And then same thing with the small ones. And I've got the sizes cut out. I'll come on here. I'll get 6 cuts. I'll get 6 of these small ones off of this by doing it like this. Trace, trace. Now, I do my cuts, the straight line cuts, on a bandsaw. I've had this for a few years. Got this a few years ago to start making the Bigfoot Sasquatch videos. Or not videos, but the Christmas tree ornaments. This cost about $280. Most expensive tool I bought so far. Not sponsored either. This, not sponsored when, scroll saw, I just put together last night. I have never used a scroll saw in my life. Very simple instructions, very easy how-to. Put it together in 5 minutes. This is what I use to cut the curves, or the turns. As you know, bandsaw is great for cutting straight lines, but if you make a sharp turn, you can bust the band. So that's where the scroll saw comes in. So that's how I cut them out. And again, I said I was going to show you what I'm going to use the timbers for. These things, these little, and I'm making these and offering them on Etsy in sets of 4. You're going to get typically like a jack-o'-lantern, a Frankenstein, maybe a mummy or a ghost, or a, stitched mouth there, another ghost. Here's like a skeleton. Now the original, the first set was actually made off of old fence posts that we used to use for a gate on a chicken pen. So you're only limited by not resources. Look, this was $108 on Amazon. You're only limited by your creativity and what you're willing to do. Okay, so once I've got all the candy corns cut out, I paint. I love to sit out here and paint because there was a deer out here earlier. We got a bunch of pear trees here. Got so many pears, they broke the limbs this year. I sit here, watch the deer, paint. I set my paints up here. These acrylics, my gosh, I think I got a 12-pack on sale this summer at the local craft store for like $7. So I'll set these up. I'll paint one side, let them dry, and they dry quickly. And then, like you've seen, I paint the other. So here it is. You want to have these at home for Christmas and Thanksgiving. You have them set up on your bookshelf or your table or wherever like this. And then as soon as Thanksgiving's over, you come in the next day and you go, well, time to go shopping on Black Friday. It really is that simple. So guys, how are you spending your time? Like my buddy Travis Daigle over at Fighting Past 40 always says, how are you spending your time? How are you spending your resources? Are you sitting around, like day drinking or flipping through television channels, getting high with the guy or the girl that lives in the apartment across the hall from you? I started at 8 a.m. this morning, and by noon, look at this, a little bit past noon, I'm already finished, cut the lumber, traced the patterns, cut the wood, sanded it down, painted it. I'm done, and now I'm making my YouTube video for the day. I'm going to have lunch with my wife, and the rest of the day is going to be spent with me and her and our son. And editing. Aside from spending the rest of my day with my wife and my son, I'm still vigilantly editing October Nights Part 2. It'll be coming at you within 30 days from this date, and we still have maybe a couple dozen copies of Part 1 here that is available or are available from our Etsy store. The link is in the description box below where I'm selling all my goodies. So get one and I'll autograph it for you before I send it out. Now, creepy story time, okay? And remember, stay hydrated. All right, so creepy story time. First story is about a ghost train, and the writer wishes to remain anonymous. These stories I'm getting to today have been laying on the pile for more than a week. So many stories are coming in. Keep sending them in. If you've sent one in and I haven't read it yet, just keep coming back because I will, okay? I didn't even think people would send these things in, but it's like it opened the floodgates. Thank you. Here we go. Ghost train. I was in the kitchen cooking, as I often do, me being a mom and all, when I started to hear something going by the house. That's not unusual. I do live near a road, but this was big. It sounded bigger than a semi-truck. Then the rumble started, and the house shook a bit, windows rattling. Earthquake? I wondered out loud. No, but the rumbling intensified, as did the shaking. Then I started to hear a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Then bells, the ding, 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 ding of a train's warning bells. But we don't live anywhere near a train track. I looked out the window to see what was going on, and I saw it. I swear I saw a bluish-gray, spectral, see-through-ish train, complete with misty wisps of smoke and steam from the smokestack and ghostly passengers. The passengers came in all different attitudes. Some were scared, some looked resigned, some looked terrified enough that they were trying to escape through the windows. Some were screaming, and some stared straight ahead, oblivious to it all. Some looked out the windows with faces distorted from what must have been solid glass to them. The sound it made was the worst thing of all. I mean, of course, the train itself was deafening, but the screams, Have you ever been to an amusement park and heard the overlapping screams of dozens of people on the roller coasters, all mashed together? It was like that, but terrifying. It took me a while to recover enough that I could speak about this. When I did, I told my daughter, who was also my best friend, and who I knew, even if she didn't fully believe me, would at least not laugh at me. She listened calmly while I described in detail what happened, and not laughing, she said, "Oh yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's been coming by for months now, almost every night, usually between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. I looked once and then decided never again. We discussed the faces and how sad and horrifying they were. I'm just surprised that you saw it during the day and on that side of the house. Usually it comes by on these two windows," she said, pointing to her window. "Apparently this thing follows a time schedule, but no set track or direction. I have stayed up late to talk to her after I put the younger kids to bed, and sometimes we still hear it. We sit quietly and listen, waiting for the rumbling and screaming and house shaking to stop. Neither of us speaks until it passes, and neither of us bother to look." I don't doubt that story at all. Quick, I know, almost impossible for me, right? 45 seconds or less story. There's a leaf hanging from a spider web on a barbed wire fence right below me, and it's waving. And there's no breeze right now, so it is creepy. I thought it was something else, but it is kind of creepy that look, there's no breeze right here. Are the spirits moving in to hear the tales as the veil grows thin as we move even closer and closer to Halloween? Okay, so there was a place close to where I'm from where I used to go mountain biking, running, hiking, fishing, all these things. And I would occasionally hear what sounded like a train whistle blowing. There had been trains there, but there had not been a train go through there in at least half a century, and the tracks were overgrown by forest. It was a logging area, a timber area, and they had at one point used to take trains up there to get logs. But again, it's been more than, probably 75 years since they've done that. I was up there about 12 years ago, and I ran into an old friend from school, and he had his fiance with him, who's his wife now, and we were just talking and talking and talking. And as we parted ways, I said, "Well, I'm going to go up here and just walk before it gets dark. And see if I can hear that creepy train whistle." And we had not talked about this, and I had not told him about this, but this guy and his wife were like, that was a loud, thunderous tree knock. So anyway, this guy and his wife were like, looking at each other like that. And the guy looks at me. He's like, oh, my God, you've heard it too? And I'm like, yeah. And then I would later talk to an old man that I knew from back in the day. He actually used to date his niece in high school, who lived up that road. His house was the last one there. I talked to him about it. He said he heard it all the time. Heard it all the time. Train whistle. True story. So I do not doubt that one. All right, next one, Deer Island. She asked me not to use her last name because it's a well-known name on this island where the story takes place. The writer writes, I already said she. Okay, she says, Dear Kevin, I've been a faithful viewer since Why Is My Amazon Package Late? Oh, I remember that one. Appeared in 2018. My YouTube channel handle, we've got some activity back here tonight, folks. So my YouTube channel that I used to comment on is, where was I? Oh, she doesn't want me to share it because she doesn't want people to know who she is. No problem. Now, if you change your mind after I've read your story, come comment on the story, and I'll pin your, your comment if you're willing to be known. Okay, if you change your mind. I have a few spooky stories, but I'll do Maine here today. I've lived in a small southwest Louisiana town all my life, except for 1 year. In June of 2014. I lived on an island in Maine. It's named Deer Island, or Deer Isle. Its economy is based on lobstering and tourism. Lobster. You got any lobster? There's a quote from John Steinbeck, who, by the way, wrote, I think, is the best book I've ever read in my life, Grapes of Wrath. It's just an FYI. There's a quote from John Steinbeck when he spent 2 days there that I totally agree with. One doesn't have to be sensitive to feel the strangeness of Deer Isle. It is an island that nestles like a suckling against the breast of Maine, but there are many of those. The sheltered, darkling water seems to suck up light, but I've seen that before. To put it plainly, this isle is like Avalon. It must disappear when you are not there, but it stays with you afterward. And more than that, brings you things you didn't know you saw come back to you after you have left. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I misquoted that. But it stays with you afterward. And more than that, things you didn't know you saw come back to you after you have left. Now that's creepy. So you spend time on this island, you're seeing things that you're not really cognitively aware of at the time, but later they come back to you, okay? One gets to the island via a suspension bridge. I'm sensitive to certain things. I guess I'm sort of an empath. I can relate. Mega stories in October Nights Part 2 about empaths. Super. The air and the vibe frequency is different as soon as you cross this suspended bridge. Moving from the deep south to the extreme northeast is a culture shock. I know. I come from a town with a church on every corner where most everyone goes to church or at least believes in God. Hancock County, at the time I lived there, was considered the most atheist county in the nation. So I'm assuming that's up in the northeast, up in Maine. I stumbled across the information researching. This is not to say the people are bad. I love quite a few people there, and they are dear friends. Just because someone thinks different than me doesn't mean they're bad or that I'm not going to love the heck out of them. This is exactly the type of viewer that I am thankful to have, and this is exactly who we want. Hey, you're my kind of people. I did manage to get a job at a 100-year-old inn. This is up on the island. It had its own ghost. You could feel the temperature change in a particular room. Supposedly the spirit of an old sea captain. I could feel whatever entity it was presence, but chose to focus on cleaning the room. Autumn in Maine is Louisiana in winter, I bet. So we moved from a camper into my in-laws' very old but nice home. It had a beautiful view of the cove. One night I had a bizarre dream of an older woman speaking to me in French. I understood a little, but don't remember. The next day I came downstairs, and for just an instant there was an older woman sitting in a rocking chair. She was to the right of the stairs looking toward me. Then, just as quick it was gone in a blink. this woman in the chair. I kept quiet for a week and then later mentioned the French dream and the chair lady to my mother-in-law. She wasn't too surprised. She said her grandmother was French and the house is generational. I took that it was haunted. So the old lady obviously lived in the house at one point. During the fall, I began working at the high school. I became good friends with my coworker. She and her husband are artists. Her husband does amazing work. One day, she told me about how the new teacher was a medium of sorts. She'd come to her house and saw paranormal things. Well, of course, I was curious. So I went over to her house. It was a 100-plus-year-old farmhouse that even had an old outhouse from way back. We visited a bit, but the whole time I could feel exactly where that entity was lingering. If I had to point at it, it would have been the upper northwest corner of the kitchen ceiling. I couldn't see it, but I just knew it was there. I had my iPad with me and took photos to study later. The house had another floor they didn't use. Kevin, this upstairs had not changed since 1950 to 1960. It was clean, but it looked old. I explored and took more photos. My friend told me that the medium teacher from work thought she saw a child trying to hide under the bed when she was up there. I didn't see anything, but Kevin, I was searching for it. That's not always a wise idea because some things just pretend to be benign, hence the term familiar spirits. I decided to go back downstairs. When I got to the top of the stairs, the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. I hadn't bit my tongue or lip. That's what it tasted like, though. A strong taste of blood in my mouth. I realized I was being spiritually attacked or toyed with by an entity that knew I was searching for it. I realized that a benign entity wouldn't make my mouth taste like it was full of blood. That has never, ever happened to me before or since. I was a little freaked out. Grabbing the banister, just in case it pushed me, I quickly went down the stairs. I was thankful my 8-year-old had gotten down safely as I'd been foolish enough to bring him up there. I think children are protected due to innocence because he didn't experience any weirdness. I told my friend we needed to get home. We got in the van and drove. The taste was still in my mouth. Once I got on the road, the further I got from the house, the taste began fading. Yes, I went back to visit, but never went upstairs or acknowledged any entities. I suffered from depression and anxiety severely that year. Yes, I was very homesick for the rest of my family, but I believe that due to my empathic nature, I was a target for whatever spiritual oppression was in the area. You're free to use this story via verbal or book adaptation. You'd tell it way better than I did. Just use my first name. My last name is well-known name on the island. Teresa. Last name removed. Teresa, I could not have told that story any better than the way you told it. I mean, you put all the facts in there. I would have made it like 5 times as long with a bunch of sidebars and fluff that probably wasn't even necessary. She mentioned something here. Shout out to Timothy Howard, the man that gave me this shirt, and his wife, Kristen Ann. They have a channel, small channel here on YouTube. They submitted a story a couple weeks ago about a portal in a tree, and I shared it. Timothy went out and got video footage. I know I told you all about this once. Almost 1,000 of you have seen the video. I'm going to, knock on wood, Christmas, fall, try to remember to put that video again on the end of this one. Go check out that video. Oh, that's just a leaf. Getting closer to autumn. Timothy went out and got video footage of that tree and that portal. Go check that out. That's really interesting. But Timothy also mentioned in the comments yesterday that I should put these together for a book. Listen, I'm not opposed to that. I have mixed feelings about that. I know other YouTubers have done that, and they kind of just copy and paste and then go to print. If my name's going to be on it, it's going to be done properly. It's going to be done professionally, which means I'm going to edit it correctly. Nothing against anybody's writing style, writing capabilities. There's some of the stories require a lot of work. Certainly not that one, but some of the others that have been submitted. I have mixed feelings about it because it would be a very great consummation of my time. Right now, I'm still doing final rewrites and edits for October Nights Part 2, 31 more tales for the Halloween season. What I'll tell you is this. Editing takes 3 to 4 times as much time and effort and attention to detail as actually writing the story. as far as just writing the story out, especially the first draft, you just whip that sucker out, if you have it. And if somebody were to tell me a story, I could whip it out in 1,000 words or 1,500 words in no time. I don't make a lot of mistakes because I am a writer and I've been a writer my entire life. But for people who don't write, you do some first draft work and you send it to me as an email, it's going to take a lot of time. And I'm not going to just copy and paste and have my sales pitch be, well, I'm not changing a word, because if you change a word, you change the story. That's not true. There are rules in the English language with grammar, etc. I'm not going to put my name on anything that's not properly edited. So I'm considering it, is what I'm saying. And number two, if you are willing to have one of your stories submitted in that work, should that work happen, you've got to put in writing, just like Teresa did here, that I have your permission to do that. I am not going to financially compensate anybody, and that's not because I'm being greedy. That's because I'm just not going to. The amount of time, work, and effort required to me to edit something like this and put it together would be tremendous, and it's costing me in that it's keeping me away from my own works. So I'm just being brutally honest with you. So I haven't ruled it out, this idea, but I haven't ruled it in. Now, once I'm finished with October Nights Part 2, I sit back and take a breather, I will certainly consider it more. So just note, though, if you're submitting a story that you would like to see included in an actual book collection, either with your name, if you want your name on there, you want credit that way, absolutely. Include your name, say where you're from, put it in there. Or you can remain anonymous, either way. But make sure to give me permission, okay? That's just a copyright issue. Now, this one is really creepy, the next one. And this is a story that I've heard other people have. And there was actually a video floating around YouTube about this disappearing car that went mega viral. I think it was on one of those cop shows where they, play bad boys, what you gonna do? The car just disappeared. So here's a very similar story. Proof that this stuff happens a lot more than people would like to give it credit for. Okay. Dear Kevin, I was hesitant to share this story the other day when I emailed you right after hearing that you had an email because I don't want my name attached to it. Okay, so your name's not going to be on it. Okay? But I just watched another video where you said you will respect that, so I'm going to share. Please change my name or leave it out. Other than that, you are welcome to use this story in any way you want. Just covered all that. Yeah. This isn't so much a creepy story as a very hard to explain story where I am very sure of what happened but have no real proof and end up sounding mildly crazy. Welcome to the club. Here goes. About a year ago, my partner and I were driving home one evening. It wasn't dark yet, but the sun was setting. I think that's called golden hour. There is a four-way intersection that we drive through almost every time we go to or from our house. This intersection is fairly large as the roads in the city we live in have many lanes. On this particular evening, my partner was driving and I was in the passenger seat. As we approached this intersection, our light was green, so we continued through it. About 1/3 of the way through the intersection, I glanced to my right and saw a red car speeding toward us, clearly showing no signs of stopping for their red light. I had one of those experiences that I'm sure you know where you think of a million things in 1 second flat. I could see the center of this car heading straight for my door, and I knew I was going to die. All I had time to do was put my right arm up to block the glass that was about to shatter from hitting my face and use my left arm to try to brace myself, knowing the car was going to flip when we got hit. I did not close my eyes. I watched this car coming straight at me. When it was about a foot away, suddenly it wasn't there anymore. It was passing in front of us with 2 to 3 feet to spare. My partner pulled over as soon as we got to a safe place to do so, and we both asked each other what had just happened. She said she did not brake, so there was no way that car was able to swerve around us. In fact, she had tried to speed up so that it would hit the back end of the car and hopefully not kill me. To this day, the only explanation either of us has is that we did in fact die and then somehow ended up in an alternate reality, dimension, or timeline where we got to that intersection just a few seconds later so that car was able to pass in front of us. Happy to be alive. It's the nameless viewer of the channel. I don't doubt that story for a minute either. I don't doubt any story I've read. I'm not doubting any story you guys submit. And again, like I shared in a video recently, I've wondered how, just from sharing my own stories and my own experiences over the past few years on this channel, going out in the woods, looking around for things, and yes, we are going to get back into that here very soon once I'm finished with October Nights Part 2. It's because you guys have had these experiences too. You're sending in your stories now that I finally got over some toxic issues. I've opened the channel up. Send us your stories. Again, you can remain anonymous, or you can you can be named and receive credit for your experience. And if you would not mind that story potentially being involved in a collection of these stories, give me written permission when you send your story. And should that happen, it'll be in there. Okay. So again, go like Travis Daigle Fighting Past 40. Go see that video I'm putting up here right now. Tim and his wife put on their channel. See you for more next time. I have no idea what was back here knocking, but we heard two this time, didn't we?